Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Alex Turner from the Business Desk, and I will be hosting this session for you, the latest part of our Invest North conference. We're now going to look at why your people are key to the post-pandemic recovery. I think the last year has been a challenge for everybody, but particularly keenly felt for many employees who've had to get used to new working environments, disrupted routines, changing roles and responsibilities, and often a lot of that can have created worry and uncertainty for the teams. But now as we look to the post-pandemic recovery, your people are really the key to that recovery and to reviving the fortunes of individual businesses and the wider economy. So in the next half an hour, we're going to use retail as our focus, and we'll look at the role that leaders and managers can play in helping people reconnect with customers, provide innovation and manage change throughout the ranks, and really bring energy to push forward over the next few months. We're delighted to be joined by two great panelists for this session. Stephanie Corking, who's People Director at Laws of Attraction. Stephanie's got long experience in HR and learning and development roles for major brands in retail and other sectors. And she'll be joined by Victoria Betts, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Hotter Shoes. Hotter is a really interesting business. So they've going through a digital transformation at the moment that's really reshaping how their business operates. And I think they've got some really exciting times ahead as they look to stay a step ahead of the competition. So Stephanie and Victoria, if you want to come forward. For everybody watching the discussion, we have our chat window to the side. Do feel free to have the conversation in there as we go along too. Put any questions that you have for Victoria or Stephanie in there, and I'll look to weave them in as we go along. But to start off with, Stephanie, if I could start with you, what would you say has been your biggest positive over the last year?
In terms of retail? I think from a personal perspective, actually, retail's been quite a saviour over the last 12 months. And what I mean by that, in lockdown, going to the supermarket on a Friday night was kind of the new going out, I think. And it kind of came somewhere where it returned a little bit of normality into our lives, I think, by going to a retail shop. I think also the retail, the workers and the organisations that have enabled that, I think that needs to be celebrated in terms of the customers that have worked tirelessly to kind of keep us feeling safe while we shop. Because I think that retail is kind of driven, or at least being out in the high street, isn't it? It's driven by this deep need to feel connected and to other human beings, but to kind of relate to not only the people, but also the products as well. So it's been quite a saviour, I think, for those shops that have been open.
No, I think, certainly my experience. But Victoria, what stands out for you over the last year?
2020 was such an unprecedented year. It doesn't need to be sort of referenced again. The thing that stood out for me, however, was the huge transformation that's observed across the retail sector. It's observed across many different sectors, but I think retailers finally realised they had to stand up and respond to the changing consumer needs and consumer behaviour. Clearly, as Stephanie said, that sort of closure and lockdown meant that actually retail became a joy, but it also became something that was very narrow in the sort of essential food sector. So everyone jumped on their laptops and on their mobile phones, and that was fantastic. And at Hotter, we saw the same situation where consumers shifted into shopping digitally. But the transformation, sadly, some losses on the high street, some significant closures. And I think what's happened in 2020 is that people are starting to evolve their business strategies, and something that realistically they're listening to what consumers want and also what their staff and their people think is the best route to sort of serve those people. So a huge year of transformation.
Yeah, and I think that listening point is really important. I suppose, as you prepare to reopen your stores in the next few weeks and welcome shoppers back and welcome your staff, your in-store staff back, how are you looking to manage that transition to make sure that everybody is comfortable and feels happy?
Great stuff. So I think firstly I'll start with our colleagues and our team. it's super important that they feel safe and supported. I think that the COVID legislation and all health and safety, everyone's quite au fait with now. It doesn't mean that we should be dismissive of it, but people, that's a hygiene factor. So what's critical for us at Hotter is to make sure that our team are as engaged as possible about their role and how important retail is, but more importantly, how their role has transformed and changed. So it isn't just that the website has started to sort of become the largest channel for us, it's actually 3/4, but it's about retail, and certainly what can our team do to help consumers feel and experience the brand. So as a business, we've made some significant decisions to change the role that our shops play. So we're engaging with them more, much more technologically. From a consumer perspective, it's about exciting and communicating that we are back open, we're safe, come in and find something different. Stephanie's example perhaps of the wine aisle on a Friday night is not the same analogy to shoes on a Tuesday afternoon, but that joy of mixing and communicating and certainly experiencing things that for many of us, shopping is a social experience, and I think consumers have missed that. So we need to make it exciting in a very safe way.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty true, isn't it? That a lot of the retailers that have done well over the last year are the ones that have managed to create that welcoming environment. So how do businesses get the people on the front line to really feel that energy and pick that up and can take responsibility for the relationship with the customer?
Was that to me? Sorry, Alex.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes. I think one of the most important things that we can do for employees at the moment is listen to them. So for them to feel empowered and engaged and excited to want to give that experience to the customers, which is exactly what we want them to do. That needs to be starts from the inside. So it starts from how we treat our employees. If our employees feel that they're engaged and that they're being listened to, and we're asking them for innovative ways that we can do things differently, kind of with this post-pandemic recovery plan that we've been talking about. So I think listening to them is first and foremost. Secondly, I would say that the relationship that employees have with their line managers is arguably the most important one. So how do we as organizations empower and support the line managers or the managers in the business so that they're able to look after the employees from not just the hygiene factors that you mentioned, Victoria, but actually getting them into the right mindset, and so that they feel that that they're playing a part in kind of welcoming the customer back into the store.
Yeah, and I suppose there's so much change and uncertainty, and people's personal circumstances are, I think, much more important than perhaps people treated them 2 years ago. And so, Victoria, how do you seek to give that flexibility and empowerment to managers, middle managers and junior managers, so that they can lead their teams appropriately?
So I think certainly through the transformation of the business, we've looked at culture, we've looked at values, and critically, we've had to look at our workforce and identify those key high potential and equally those that we can empower. Now, I think it's always easy when there's a strategy and a vision. So the Hotter strategy and vision was always in train, and yet we've transformed it and we've engaged our people, and everyone is aware of their role within that sort of strategy and what they need to do. With regards to agility and flexibility, clearly many of us are still working from home. And I think whereas previously retail staff have occasionally felt somewhat divorced from, say, head office staff, everybody is now somewhat more remote. So I think there's a technological requirement to give people the toolkit. So we've invested in iPads, we've invested in making sure that the teams have got, the right instant messaging tools, but also making sure that we're equipping guys with the information in a much more digitally savvy way that is still embracing the guys to sort of make their own decisions. With regards to flexible working, we're very adaptable. We're going to respond to the consumer needs. So previously we had a fixed opening and close time. The reality is consumer habits will change, and it's about making sure that, as an example, on a local level, store managers empowered to sort of make that key decision. We've therefore invested in one tool, which is an instant diary booking for a store appointment. And you can use that store appointment as a consumer, go into the Hotter stores and get your feet measured, which is a super important part of the shopping journey for footwear. And enabling our managers, even during the first lockdown, they opened on a Sunday if they had enough interest from consumers, or they didn't if they didn't wish to. So it's about empowering within some key parameters and also equipping them with the right toolkit that they're making informed decisions that meets the business strategy.
Yeah. And Stephanie, just on that point around the connection, or perhaps sometimes disconnection between head office and stores, how do you encourage businesses to have that joined up approach so they avoid that us and them mentality?
Yeah, I think anyone that's ever worked in retail has probably experienced that head office and retailers and their mentality. I think first and foremost, it comes down to your the attitudes and behaviours of the senior leaders at both sides of those the businesses, and for them to really kind of truly understand what the challenges are for each of the groups. So from an operational perspective, does head office understand actually what the retail managers are needing to deliver on a daily basis in the stores? But then also to be able to, I suppose, for the retail managers to look at what the split of time is that they're spending. So how much time are they required to spend on the operation, which is running the store and putting the money in the till, versus how much time are they spent managing, coaching, training, developing, and looking after their staff. There isn't a magic number there, Alex. There isn't a magic formula there. I think every business and organization is different, but also every manager is different. But I do think the importance of focusing on not just the people strategy, but on the engagement of the people, possibly over the operation for the first few months, will help those people be able to drive the business forward.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting period for retail, isn't it? As it continues to shift towards that experiential format. And Victoria, I know Hotter have got some really exciting plans that they're looking to roll out in the period ahead. So from a people point of view, how do you take your people on that journey so that they really embrace a different way of working, a different way of engaging with customers?
Great question, Alex. So just to give the context, Hotter's actually chose to invest £250,000 into a new in-store technology to provide that experience to customers, and this is the custom fit foot measuring. Why have we done it? We've done it because we've listened to both consumers and our staff alike. And what's key is that customers get the best precision fit, and certainly your fit needs change as you age or as your lifestyle changes. We actually ran a survey in early 2020 to reveal that 1 in 5 ladies over 50 sadly wearing the wrong size shoes, which is our core demographic. So we understood this from the consumer, and we spoke to our staff, and critically, so many men and women require that real specialist treatment in terms of the perfect fit and perfect comfort for their archetype. So we spoke to our staff, we spoke to consumers, and fundamentally the solution we came up with therefore came from the people and from the team. So it wasn't that we therefore had to impose the strategy or the tactics on them. We then identified a handful of our retail team who helped us produce the customer journey. So, we took them off furlough, so we engaged them even though perhaps their store was closed. I think for me, the key therefore is giving our colleagues, particularly those who sadly had furlough during times, that platform to give the feedback. So we do weekly calls, we do monthly newsletters, so regular proactive stuff. And equally the power of WhatsApp, we're constantly sort of sharing ideas and what does people think about this. I think the communication is really important, but making sure that it isn't an imposition, it's actually a sort of an agreed community decision. And that's where I think we're going to win on the 12th of April when we reopen.
Yeah, and I think some of the technology that's being brought in is being planned. I think it has the potential to make going shoe shopping an exciting experience. Almost brings out kind of the 7-year-old in us when we went to Clark's and for school shoes and put our foot in the machine, and almost that sort of excitement that brought as a young kid. using technology to make it kind of exciting for adults to come and buy shoes again?
Absolutely. Technology has just given us so many opportunities. Certainly, we all perhaps recollect the moment in Clark's, and my favourite was transitioning from the wooden machine to the electrical one when I became a wee bit older. Fit is a huge important part, and there's something that technology is telling us that we didn't really know about ourselves. The other investment that Hot is making is into our app, which actually everybody nowadays is smartphone savvy. And I think, unfortunately, during the course of lockdown, whether it's through Zoom calls or House Party or whichever technology platform we all chose, we all began to use it much more plentifully, whether it's your grandparents, your mother, etc. We're investing in our app such that you can try on shoes without physically trying them on. Sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it gives the ability to quickly with your phone camera have a wee look at your shoes and say, actually, I want the red, I want the black. That's something that can happen both in store with the guided help of our advisors, or indeed remotely, which I think we're just back between the remote digital experience and the in-store experiential experience, and really has a perfect role and harmony for both of them.
Yeah, Stephanie, that seems to be a key direction for retailers, is how you marry the technology and the online side of the business with the in-store experience to make sure that they complement each other rather than effectively competing internally against each other. So how is there a way to get that right, or are there ways to certainly avoid getting that wrong?
I think that the use of technology to bring kind of customers into the store needs to be, from a people perspective, I suppose, understood and trained in. So it's about, just like you said, Victoria, I love that example you gave, is that you took people off furlough to kind of engage them in what does this new customer journey look like. So like I say, engaging them from the beginning, getting them involved in the design. The frontline staff in our stores are the people that talk to the customers every day. So organizations could probably listen to the employees more, and use technology to listen to employees more, to really kind of understand that's what our consumer needs. I think also looking at the wider picture of how consumers have had to purchase over the last kind of 12 months is what the lessons learned, what can we take from that, what have been the really plus points of moving online, and what's been that experience versus what are consumers looking for in terms of now the return to store experience. And again, the best people to ask are the people that are serving them every day and the people that they're talking to.
And I think one of the interesting things I found with what Hot has done over the last year, Victoria, is the growth of the online sales is shifted your demographic or extended your demographic and your customer base, which is, I suppose, what many of us are looking to do in all sorts of different sectors. So, was that a deliberate strategic choice, or was that a happy accident?
Thankfully, it was a deliberate strategic choice. Our core audience, Hot, has been formed in 1959, and we've always served a slightly more mature market, largely females. That's great. We still absolutely have our sweet spot. Now we're sort of honing in on the 55 plus. But everybody wants comfortable shoes. And I think the pandemic actually shifted a lot of people's mindsets into comfort and casual and self-care. And we saw a huge lift in either our walking shoes, the Gore-Tex, or actually our active shoes in terms of having a wander out, whether it's yoga or a walk. So we managed to sort of grow our addressable audience into that 55 plus, better still, 45 plus, largely, I think, because digital is there for everybody. And with the sort of cleverness of our algorithms and technology, you can really fine tune who it is that you're talking to. So actually our online sales were up 29% year on year, which is fabulous. So we're really, really pleased with the performance of our online sales. And what we're starting to see is that we're attracting, as you described, slightly younger audience, but also let's not forget about you chaps. So I think Potter's roughly a 90-10 sort of female to male business. But of course, from a population perspective, it's roughly 50-50. More men come and have a look at the Hotter collection. So that's also been a real happy accident.
Yeah, and I think it's possible that that's only going to continue to shift with some of the technology that's going into the footwear itself that makes it feel much more akin to some of the sort of global trainer brands and some of the things that people might be more used to. And yeah, just a nod to Andrew in the chat, who is one of your younger male customers
Yes.
who enjoys the hotter products. So, Stephanie, in terms of all businesses look to extend their customer base and reach new people. How is that best managed without alienating kind of the current customer base?
I think to reach out to, using technology to reach out to customers is a great idea. So actually, we all know the delights of Twitter and Facebook and other social kind of media platforms to be able to gain customer feedback. I think it's about gathering the data and then seeing how within the organizations, how we can be more innovative and how we can be more creative and how we can, like I say, really listen to what the employees are actually looking for. And then to use that as part of kind of the strategies, but I think be brave. I mean, there's going to be lots of learnings that have come out of this over the last 12 months. And how do we take some risks, and how do we empower some of our teams to take some risks and maybe try new things that companies may have never tried before?
Yeah, I think. Do you think that the events of the last year have given businesses more freedom to be braver?
If I can perhaps answer, Alex, I think it may have been seen to give permission for businesses and brands to be braver. I'd flip it on its head actually and say that it's those brave and courageous brand businesses that have actually stood the test of time. It was a scary time, and I think that we didn't know what was going to happen, and realistically, it was that courage and that strength of belief in the business to identify the things that were perhaps a wee bit broken or things that may have needed to be addressed for some time. So 2020 was just a year of acceleration for us. At Hotter, our strategy didn't change because of the pandemic. It just absolutely went on turbocharge. So I think that definitely we need to be brave, we need to be bold. And I think that the consumer behavior is something that we now thankfully have to behave, those of us that will win, much more customer centric, because that's who we're talking to all the time. That's who we're doing our jobs for. And perhaps sadly, too many businesses didn't put the customer at the heart of all of their decision making. So she's going to stay front and central to me, and of course Andrew and other gents out there too.
Great. And Stephanie, how do you in your work encourage leadership teams to be brave when it's appropriate for them to be so?
I think from a leader's perspective, it's around, I've said this before, it's about listening. To use your teams and your staff to be able to harness brilliant ideas and innovation, and then encourage and support the innovation in terms of making things, do things differently. I think whenever we go through periods of change, again, Victoria, a really good point that you made is when change only happens when we're brave. And actually, when we do things, when we decide to do things differently. So from a leadership perspective, it's really, really kind of harnessing those ideas and then supporting people to put them into practice. I think one of the things that's happened with the remote working from home is, from a leadership and management perspective, our communication styles being set to broadcast. I think a lot of organizations, from what we're hearing anyway, from HR departments, is that actually organizations have done a brilliant job of supporting employees and communicating really well. But if we are going to go through more change and we do want to be creative and innovative and change things within the brand, that communication style from announcement needs to become a little bit more two-way, I think.
Yeah. And lots of businesses are having conversations about transformation and the cultural approach and, like creating the more welcoming environments. But at the end of the day, it's about getting money in the till and running profitable enterprises, isn't it? So, Victoria, how do you get that balance right between, embracing a new approach and making sure that everyone still stays focused to what the core goals of making money at the end of the day?
I guess it'd be great if I had some of my team on here who could answer on my behalf, so it wasn't a biased answer. That said, I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that it's a performance culture and retail is measured on its KPIs of sales and profit and margin. So we can't lose sight of that. That my team certainly know their objectives, know their KPIs and what to achieve. But it's about making sure that that balance comes about through personal development. So I think that the important part of performance management is both the behaviours and the competencies, and how we best embed that support structure and mechanism. So one of the toolkits we've employed a lot throughout 2020 and the early part of 2021, more of a mentorship and coachee type relationship, because people are a little bit more remote. So how do we best support them in the way Stephanie's described, in that sort of two-way support? It doesn't stop the performance management and, more importantly, just the measurement of KPIs, but it's supplementary to that. And hopefully, I think that teams feel supported and clear on their role, or feel clear on the fact that there's a lot of change. And the only thing we know from surface, our forecast will be a little inaccurate. How do we demonstrate we've achieved the input goals? The output goal might come in a few days or weeks' time.
Yeah. And Stephanie, I suppose that's the point, isn't it? That people are at the heart of this, and employees and workers that feel supported and encouraged and well trained are going to deliver really good results.
Mm-hmm. I think, again, to your point, Victoria, organisations, the best thing that they could do now to get the money in the till is to ensure that their people strategy is in line with their corporate strategy. So if you've got ambitious KPIs, or you've got growth plans in place, or even just like we talked about the post-COVID recovery plan, does your people strategy support that? And if it doesn't, then I would certainly be recommending that's looked at in terms of that they both work in alignment, because it's only by performance through your people that the money's going to end up back in the till.
Yeah. And just to finish off, Victoria, with the shops reopening shortly, and lots of Hotter's transformation plans in progress and accelerating, what are you most excited about for the year ahead?
Personally, I'm excited about freedom, going shopping, eating out, going on holiday. Professionally, I'm really excited about taking our proposition to market, because it's different, it's innovative. I think that the sort of joy of shopping needs to come back. So with the reopening, we've got the footprint machines, we've got all these clever app solutions, and we've got our people. So I'm really encouraged about why consumers should come to Hotter, both those that previously knew of us and those new ones that will come in. So that's sort of one of my key excitements. And I guess the second excitement about what's coming up is that collaboration and teamwork. So digital isn't just the digital marketers and the developers, it's everybody. So I think that shifting the culture into one of more greater agility and innovation is something that I've already seen, and I can't wait to see that develop at Hotter over the course of the next few weeks.
No, so that sounds very exciting. And Stephanie, what are you most looking forward to seeing from the retail space?
I think retail, more than most, I think, has gone through a lot of change. I think what I'd like to see is, well, I'm excited about it, but I'd like to see is that retailers start to work together. And so the return to the high street, I think the high street, think the high street's been suffering for years before COVID came in place. So I think seeing brands and seeing organisations and the governments kind of working together to encourage people back to the high street and back into the shops. And I'm really excited to see that collaboration across those different organisations. I think that'd be really great to see.
Yeah, no, and I think particularly in some of the secondary shopping markets and smaller towns, there's often a real collaborative partnership in place already, isn't it, to really encourage people to visit. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in this session. But Stephanie and her colleagues at Laws of Attraction are in the expo area, so do pop over and carry on the conversation with them this afternoon. But I'd like to say thank you to Victoria and to Stephanie for the participation, for the insight into retail and how you really use people to drive forward the post-pandemic recovery. Just to flag up, we've got a session just about to start. Lord Jim O'Neill, one of the architects of the Northern Powerhouse when it launched under George Osborne 7 years ago now, is about to speak and to give his view on the future of the Northern Powerhouse and where that stands. But whether I see you in that session or in one of the later sessions this afternoon, I hope you enjoy the rest of the day at Invest North. Thank you.